Okay, Dan, what do you think? Should we go ahead and kick this off?
I think so.
Okay.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Dan Schmidt, and I'm going to present how to structure and flowchart a DocFlow. I went to Wikipedia, and this is what it had to say about electronic workflows. And basically, what is a DocFlow? A DocFlow is an electronic workflow used to direct, regulate, and automate the flow of organization documents in order to make the flow more effective, efficient, and secure. In this presentation, what we're going to talk about, we're going to figure out what questions need to be asked in order to determine whether there's a benefit to creating a DocFlow for a specific task. We'll cover the structure and flowcharting of said DocFlows. We've got Homer Simpson here, and he's asking himself two questions. How are we doing things now, and could we work smarter? And just like Homer Simpson, I'm sure that a lot of us agree we can all benefit from working smarter. And that's what DocFlow will do for us. There are four questions to setting up a DocFlow. The first question is, what process currently in place would benefit from the creation of a DocFlow? The second question is, what does the end of the process look like? What does the end of that DocFlow look like? And you would ask yourself, it's kind of counterintuitive until you think, if you know where you're going, how to get there is a lot easier. So if we figure out what we want it to look like at the end, then we can figure out how to get there. The third question is, who's involved and what are their roles? And what steps are needed to complete the process? So let's look at those steps in depth and individually. First off, the first question, what process currently in place, what are you doing now that could benefit from an electronic workflow, or what we call a DocFlow? Accounts payable, that's sort of almost a given. Accounting can benefit in so many ways, especially accounts payable, from electronic processing of documents. It means you free up time, you're always current, and you don't lose money because you missed a deadline in a payment. Manufacturing, such as quality, i.e. quality control and test documentations. I was actually just got back from a conference, a manufacturing conference, and they were discussing, some companies have to make changes to the machine, calibration and setting changes, and they have to document those changes. Well, having the documentation follows a DocFlow would mean that they're done on time and properly, all the I's are dotted, and everything just is a lot more efficient. Human resources, hiring and reviews, there's something, you've got paperwork involved there. At its heart, most any process which involves documents can have a DocFlow built around it. So we look at question number 2. What does the end of the process look like? What ends the process? What is the ending trigger? What is the thing that says, okay, this process is done? The second question is, can a process have more than one ending? When you're hiring someone and you've set up a DocFlow for hiring a person, you could have two endings. You could have, yes, we hired the person, we went through all the steps and we found someone. Or we went through all the steps and nobody met our criteria at this point, so it ended without hiring someone. Consequently, DocFlow could have two endings. Who determines when the process ends? That's another important question. The third question, who are involved and what are their roles? What are the roles and the names of the individuals that are in the process? Who are doing the steps and roles now? What triggers change the process through the different steps? What are the things that happen that cause it to move to the next step? What steps are needed to complete the process? We know where we're going, we know who's doing it, and we know how they're doing it now. We can now lay it out into a flow and see how it works. To answer the first question, if we were to take accounts payable and use that as our starting point, our example, that would answer the first question. And so we're going to do that. So question number 1 is answered. Question number 2, who's involved the roles? Let's say we have Tim as the purchasing manager in this accounts payable workflow, he creates the POs. Janet is the AP clerk. She receives the invoices and packing slips, and also the receiver documents, for those of you who create receiver documents, and she processes those. Patricia's the controller. She processes and approves up to a certain given amount. And in this scenario, we're going to give her a $2,500 max approval target. She can't approve anything higher than that. And then Dave, the CFO, oversees and approves or denies any and all at any given dollar amount. So this is an example, this is a screenshot of what we're going to talk about next week. And this is where the roles are. And in here we have the controller as a role, and the role ID is the controller, and the description is Patricia, she is the controller. So that defines, and she is an administrative user, which means she can see all the documents and all the packets in each of the workflows that are under her privy, under accounts payable or accounting workflows. So step number one, Tim, he's the purchasing manager. He creates the PO. He emails it to the vendor. At the exact same time he emails the vendor, we, in Unform, we capture and archive a copy of that PO, and it sits there very quietly, unobtrusively, waiting for the next trigger or the next step. Step number two, Janet receives an invoice and or packing slip. Usually the invoice comes in first, and what she does is she processes it and indexes it. That involves some stuff that can be ran automatically, which saves her a lot of time. And by receiving that invoice, we automatically pull that PO that's been sitting there all by itself, quietly, not hurting anybody. It starts the AP PO workflow, and it matches to the invoice. And when the packing slips comes in, it matches to the packing slip. When the receiver document is entered in the system, we capture all of them. So now we have 3 to 4 documents. It's all done automatically, and the process is ready to go. So Janet reviews, confirms, and it moves to the next step. The next step, in some cases, we have step 3, step 4. The controller, she and anybody along the way gets email notification that they have work to do. So she gets an email and she's told that there are documents that she has to approve. She approve or deny them up to that $2,500 limit she has. And if she's below the limit, she approves it. It becomes a completed packet. She can either, and then, or she can deny it and send it to Tim, right, for further clarification, or maybe there's a price difference between what the PO was sent out as or was recorded as and what the invoice, and maybe there's problems, maybe there's a fuel charge issue, which she can make those, she can send them back for more information to be dealt with. Here is a list of the different steps, the different steps and the roles. So we have Tim as the PO, we have the AP clerk, which is Janet, we have the controller, Patricia, and we have another one we haven't talked about, that'll be Dave, and that will come up in a moment. This is where I was telling you about the fact that the controller in this APPO match, she has a max approval rate approval of $2,500. So anything above that, step 4 flips in, and Dave, the CFO, who oversees and can approve or deny all AP packets, but he doesn't want to do them all. He wants to do the ones that are pertinent to him, the ones that Patricia can't approve. He reviews and either approves or sends back those documents or those packets above $2,500. The process ends by looking like this. We have the PO, the invoice, the packing slip, and in some cases, we have the receiver doc. It's all brought together as a completed packet once it's approved. In the beginning, when I said processing, there's some steps that are taken. We can actually extract data from the invoice. We can do the line item detail, the item number, the unit cost, the amount, the quantity, the totals, all that information. As I said, the fuel charges, everything. We can do the math to confirm that the PO, the invoice is correct, and verify the invoice is correct, compare it against the PO, and it can be submitted as an EDI, a CSV, or an XML directly into the ERP. Now, some of you folks out there are running ERPs that don't want the line item detail. They only want the total of the PO, or excuse me, total of the invoice. We can do that too. Once that data is put in there, the pack is complete, the process has been archived, or the pack has been archived, the data has been sent to the ERP. The last step is for the ERP to create a check, which Unform can create that check for you, and then it's shipped off. That check actually gets put in, and that becomes the last item that's in the workflow document, or workflow packet, sorry. We've covered this today, and what we're going to talk about next week has more to do how it looks, how DocFlow works in our system. We talked about, here we're talking about structure and flow charting, a DocFlow. Next week, this is a screen capture of that AP PO workflow. And in the first line, we notice that one document is 1 day pass through. It's approved, but something is holding it up for final approval, and for the final approval, because it's still it's not been approved by the controller or by the CFO. And the second one is in dispute, and then we have this last one that's on hold. It's 14 days out. The PO and the invoice may be there, but the product hasn't been delivered, so that may be what. And we'll discover that more next week when we go through that. So next week, we're going to delve deeply into our DocFlow process. Very little, almost no PowerPoints. This time there's been a lot of PowerPoints, next time almost none. So next Tuesday, same time, same station, we're going to cover DocFlow Part 2, which is DocFlow and signature capture capability. Very important, that signature capture. So what I'd like to do right now is do a little bit of a advertisement for our upcoming conference before I open it up to questions. First off, our conference at Fort Lauderdale on the 6th through the 8th is going to be, as you can look through the schedule, it's almost all, it's heavy training, no sales in this stuff. And the hotel, the venue is the Jimmy Buffett, Margaritaville, Hollywood Beach, and bring your flip-flops and don't step on those bottles or those pop tops because you don't want to blow out your flip-flop. And we have early bird, which is, we have the early bird special, which I think I mentioned earlier, happens till the 14th, or is that coming up the next slide? Yeah, there it is. Early bird special comes up on the ends on the 14th of October. So register early, get that all taken care of so you don't miss anything. So from this point on, I'd like to open it up for questions. So give me some good questions.
There is a question for you, Dan, in regards to, is this browser-based?
Yes, it is browser-based. All Unform version 10 is 100% browser-based. Any other questions?
There's also a question in regards to, has this been used for like HR or other departments?
Yeah, yes, we actually we'll be showing a demo of HR, a hiring demo of HR, workflow of HR next week.
Okay, and then...
And manufacturing too, we have a manufacturing workflow too.
Okay, and then there's also a question in regards to viewing access. Are you able to put in restrictions on who can view which workflows?
Yeah, let me go back. Well, yes, let's just go back a bit because I'll show you what this will be a little easier if I actually show it to you here, but we're going to go over this next week. See, a super user is logged in, they can see everything. But if someone was in a position where they were just the AP clerk, they would only see this one that's AP clerk, and the controller would not be there because it's not the document is not at that stage yet. It's a different step. So yeah, when you log in, you see only the documents that you're to see. So HR is never going to see an AP workflow or a workflow document. It's not going to happen. Vice versa, the accounting department is not going to see reviews if you decide to workflow your reviews. Anything else?
Okay, let's see. And one other question, and it looks like it might be the last one, and that is there a limit of number of steps in a workflow?
No, you can have as many steps as you want, as you feel that you need to complete the workflow. We don't put any restrictions on the steps. Again, we'll get into that a little later. I will, somebody asked me if I would be emailing the PowerPoint. I can email the PowerPoint. I definitely can do that. We're going to be recording this. So we're actually going to edit and make a video. But yes, I can send out the PowerPoint if somebody wants the PowerPoint.
Okay, I
Is that
believe
it?
that's it, unless there are any other questions.
Anybody have anything else? Please?
I think you're good. I think we have
Okay.
answered all the questions.
All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next week. Again, next week, we're going to be in the workflow itself. I have like 2 or 3 slides, and we're going to be into the workflow, and we're going to be exploring it. So thank you very much. Hope to see you next week. You guys have a wonderful day.